Hello again. Apart from all those supposed refugees and asylum seekers who have arrived in this country across the English Channel on small boats in the last few years, many of whom are being accommodated, by the way, in hotels at our expense, there is another group whom we sometimes overlook. These are the 10,000 or so Afghans whom we brought to this country last year after the fall of Kabul, and are also in hotels, eating and drinking at our expense. 70 hotels at £1 million a day. The behaviour of some of these people is simply staggering. It is, for example, proving impossible to get them to move out of the hotels, even when suitable council houses are identified and offered to them. As viewers may know, when an ordinary British person turns down the offer of a council house, that's it. They're declared to be intentionally homeless, and the local authority no longer has any responsibility for them. Not so when it comes to Afghan refugees. Properties have been found in both Scotland and Wales. Large houses, big enough to accommodate the 2 million kids which some of these people have. These houses have been turned down on the grounds that Scotland and Wales are too cold and the people there might not speak English. I give a link to a news report on this in the description to this video. Instead of chucking them out of the hotels and telling them that they're on their own, the Home Office is working to persuade them to take the houses offered. Of course, this has nothing to do with the weather. It is because they want to live in London and join a ghetto of other Afghans. If they were sent to Wales or Scotland, then they might be forced, heaven forbid, to integrate with the British people, rather than associating only with other Afghans. That the British government brought them to our country in the first place, and is now cosseting them and allowing them to turn down council houses, a luxury not allowed to homeless British people, as I say, suggests that our government is actively encouraging this kind of thing, instead of working in our interests. That is to say, the interests of native-born British people. Here's another example of how the government helps scams of this kind to allow asylum seekers to dictate to us what they should be given. After we left the European Union, the British government was very anxious that as many foreigners from Europe as wished to should remain in our country. They encouraged them to register and settle here. Why, I don't know. Those without the right to stay could remain if they were married to British nationals. Cue inevitably a flood of bogus marriages to gain the right to remain. The Home Office knows about these marriages, half of which involve Albanians, by the way, and are aware of 365 couples against whom there is cast iron and irrefutable evidence that fraud was involved. They are bogus marriages, fraudulent marriages. I wonder if viewers would like to guess, firstly, how many of those involved in this racket have been prosecuted, and secondly, how many of the criminals engaged in these scams have been hoofed out of the country. It will perhaps come as no great surprise when I tell you that the answer is, in both cases, 0. There have been no prosecutions for such fraudulent enterprises since 2018. This is why I say that the British government is complicit in a lot of this business. They know very well that British people turning down a council house on some pretext or other will not receive another offer, and yet they allow foreigners to be as picky as they please. They know all about the Albanian gangs working the bogus marriage racket, and yet refuse to prosecute anybody for such crimes. We have a government which is actively helping illegal immigrants and bogus asylum seekers to work the system and take advantage of this country to the detriment of those of us who were born and bred here. I suppose the only question that remains is why? Why do we have governments, successive governments, I'm bound to say, who carry on in this way and work against our interests?